the island, as well as the rest of the world, is now at a point like it was in World War II, where there was so much disruption happening. There was so much chaos and revolution, for want of a better term, be it technological or anything else. And we have a chance now to be innovative and progressive and really make a difference. You know, there's a big belief on the Isle of Man that we're 20 years behind everything else from the general public. Always behind, always behind. And I think if COVID's taught us anything, the Isle of Man has got more than the capability to adapt fast. We have 86,000 people in a controlled environment.
It doesn't have a great history of adapting fast. You say we don't like change, needs to become we do need change. That's why I'm running to represent you. But again, the Manx don't seem to take to change to bold moves. How can you force that?
I don't believe that's true. I just simply don't. I think there's a certain sect of the Isle of Man that says we don't want change. Same as that same sect of the Isle of Man say there's a boat in the morning. If there's a problem, our answer shouldn't be there's a problem and if you don't like it, leave. There's a problem, we're going to fix it, make it better for everyone, and make sure that this is a great habitat for everyone to live. I don't believe for a moment that the Isle of Man doesn't want change. There's no way that we're happy with twice the recorded drug-related death rate of the UK.
You quote that as well. That's disturbing figures. Where do you get your information from on that?
Dr. Hewitt's released them all. As well as that, they're widely available across the internet.
So why do you think that is? We seem to have a beautiful island here, beautiful scenery, nice, safe environment. So why are people putting themselves in this position?
There's multiple legs to this. For one, most of those deaths aren't illegal drugs. They're prescribed drugs, which tells me that we don't have the resources to ensure that the people are getting the right drugs or they're being monitored correctly in the first place. And as for illegal drugs, we don't have education about it. You know, we just have a blanket ban on them all.
So these are basically mistakes by people. People who are killing themselves are not doing it because they want to leave this life. They're doing it because basically they're making mistakes with drugs.
Bit of column A and a bit of column B. We have quite a high suicide rate too.
Just move on to yourself. What qualities would you bring the electorate of Middle?
Well, I'm probably what you would call under a non-neurotypical. So people call it neurodiverse or ADHD.
You'll have to explain that. A lot of people are thinking, what's he mean by that?
Yeah, so people call it ADHD or neurodiversity.
So detail concerns you a great deal.
Yes. I have an ability to be able to think abstractly. So I'm very focused on finding the fact that there's 10, 20 different problems that could probably be solved by one answer, or by making systematic changes in a way that affects across the board of loads of big changes, opposed to just sticking little patches on a boat that's sinking and wondering why it's not floating.
Can you give an example where there is something which you feel could be changed fairly simply?
Yes, just a thing as quick as healthcare, for instance. I've had some serious issues throughout my life with healthcare, and I have over 1,000 pages worth of medical notes on my...
Which you collect. I mean, you say doctors should give receipts
after they've... that's exactly what I was about to say.
So you know what the doctor's, how he sees your position.
It's not just that, you know, if you go and get a burger, you're entitled to a receipt. The most important thing in your life is your health, and you do pay for it. So if there's massive waiting lists and there's all these massive issues coming around our healthcare system, if you go into a hospital or a doctor ill, you're already not in the best state of mind to be taking in information. So a simple thing of just printing out a receipt of saying the doctor saw you on this day, you were saying this thing was wrong with you, I prescribed this drugs and we will check back in 2 weeks. That makes you leave relieved. And stress is the worst thing in the world for convalescents. So if you had that, not only would your medical records then be up to date, but your service would be accountable for the treatment that they're supposed to be giving you. Then, when you go and see the next locum, they can look at your records and it's just there, documented, nice and easily.
Well, just stay with health for a moment. You say the island could position itself as the medical tourism capital of the world. Do we have the facilities? There's complaints we don't have enough facilities for our own people, let alone opening our doors to people coming in outside.
It depends what you mean by the facilities. We have a hospital that's massive. I'm fairly sure the hospital was originally built as a teaching hospital, because I know the old nobles used to do it. We have a crumbling system in the UK at the moment where the NHS is falling apart. The Isle of Man has become obviously by the house prices, hugely, wanted place to be. So if we were to take some specialists from the UK, offer them a relocation package, then you'd have...
We find it difficult to bring specialists over here, don't we? Generally, just to run the hospital, let alone bring them over to do other things like this.
Oh, well, it's not to do specifically other things like this. So what it would be is, you have 10 specialists in the UK come over here who are being paid very well. They can then not only train, so we could have the facility to train our own nurses, midwives, all that business. But as the world opens, they could then start opening up private practices, not beforehand. So this makes it so our public health gets the boost that it needs. And then moving forward as the world opens, we start to open up our private clinics. So all the people who have holiday homes, all the B&B, all that stuff has a big advantage here. But
it's going to be difficult in the next few years, obviously, after we've recovered or tried to recover from COVID.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Anything major, anything bold is going to be difficult.
But that's a great way to start. And, it's through chaos that creation happens. The best thing...
So we're chaotic, are we?
I would say the last 2 years certainly has been. I'd say people being on waiting lists for 5 years is chaos.
Can you just talk about the government? Accountability and accessibility, you say, is important. And one of the things you say is the government should own up when it does something wrong, etc. And I think you do say in your Facebook that they will be forgiven if they own up. People will accept their honesty. But social media is not likely to, isn't it? I mean, social media usually piles in on these occasions.
I beg to differ. I put my hands up all the time. The reason
But you're not in charge of people. You're not there and people blaming you for medical things or roads or whatever.
No,
They're in a
course
slightly
not.
different position, aren't they?
I think someone out and out telling you that they didn't do something wrong when we have the access to information that we have is far worse. Mistakes are human. Mistakes are understandable. Mistakes are how you learn.
But if you were in government, if you were a departmental member, if you were a minister even, would you tell everybody everything that came in front of your desk?
If it was necessary and it wasn't illegal.
If it was necessary.
If it wasn't illegal. Sorry, if
there.
it wasn't illegal for me to do so, I, if elected, do plan to release my minutes every week.
And other details that you get, say information that you're given inside the department, and basically you think, well, that's a bit iffy. Would you release that?
Provided it's not illegal for me to do it and it's not sensitive information.
But what if it made a situation very difficult, say, for the government? Would you release it?
It's a very vague thing. I don't know, unless there's an example I can specifically go for, that's a case-by-case thing, isn't it? But it's not so much that would I tell people the information I'm being given, it's more that if my actions themselves have caused an issue, would I be willing to own that issue to then be able to learn the mistake that I've made to make sure that I don't make it again, rather than getting stuck with an issue because I've dug my heels in and refuse accountability?
You're qualifying this slightly, but obviously it is, I think you accept it is difficult to be in a position of power and release everything.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just talk about the minimum wage and the living wage.
Okay.
I think by reading your notes, basically, you're saying the living wage is really, if that has to be a minimum, that should be it, and not the minimum wage, which is a wee bit below living wage at the moment, or quite a bit, you would argue.
23.5% less.
So what, the living wage should become, in effect, the minimum wage?
Yeah. If we accept as an island that the minimum wage is £8.25 an hour and we accept that the living wage is £10.14, I think it might have been just changed to £10.19.
It is £10.19, I believe.
Yeah.
Quoted.
So that's 23.5, maybe a bit more, closer to 24% difference now. And if we're having up to 1/6 of our workforce on minimum wage, then we're telling that massive amount of our section of our population that they're worth less than what you can comfortably live on without struggling.
The other way of putting it is that these people are affordable to people who are employing them, and if they were given more wage, then they wouldn't be affordable and the people would have to lay people off.
Not necessarily, again, because if if you run a business and your business is providing a service or it's providing products, then that's the profit powerhouse of your business. If your business is making its profit based on paying people below living wage, then you're...
Because some people are just scratching by on businesses, especially with the COVID situation. They are finding it very tough indeed. And to put an extra layer of wage responsibility upon them would be, well, for their business, fatal almost, I think.
My specific idea isn't about putting that onus on the business. I think that on the Isle of Man, we live in a welfare state already because we subsidise these people who take advantage of low-income workers. I have been quite public about saying that I think it's the government and those...
Are they taking advantage of the workers, or are they taking advantage of the situation of
Both.
being able to employ these people
Both.
because of their wage limit? So you say that is taking advantage of workers?
Yeah, so I think the government and those businesses who profit the most from low-income workers have a mutual obligation to be able to provide these people with a decent quality of life. So my rough idea is that you have a change in system where, as a business, you can have X amount of hours paid at minimum wage, which will then be subsidised by the government to boost it up to living wage.
So someone would be paying, it would be the government. The government would have to take money from somewhere else to afford this.
Yeah, so it'd be like an employed person's allowance tax.
But they would be paying with their own money. The government would be paying with our money, but they'd be paying with money that would have to come from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Somewhere else would have to have its money cut.
Not necessarily. Sometimes you spend a penny to make £100. So that's
So you see it as an
a
investment?
strong investment. Yeah. So if a lot of people on this island, and no one will admit it out loud, and I'm not saying that lots of people do it, but actually I am saying a lot of people do it, and I don't blame them. There's not a lack of work out there. There's a lack of wages. We pay a lot of money out on benefits.
We generally have a very low unemployment level, though, don't we?
We pay quite a lot of people on benefits, and then we have to pay a lot of employed persons allowances out anyway. The problem is that there's so many bits of red tape and movement around these things that means testing doesn't work for things like that, because that's not how equity works. So if you earn £8.25 an hour, the government should put that £8.25 an hour and boost it to £10.19. What that would give you as an employer. So say you're a bar staff and you're being paid £8.25 an hour. That then gets boosted up to £10.14 an hour, £19 an hour. At the end of that day, you're then earning 23.5% more, which means that you can afford a cleaner, or you can afford a drink.
But your boss might say, I can afford you less hours now because I'm paying you more, and cut back the number of hours you're working because of this.
Then it begs the question why you're working so many hours in the first place if you don't have to be there.
So how many hours do you think someone should work?
Depends on their goals, you know.
But generally across the board, if you had to come to a figure, say this is the sort of time people should work.
What should be a full-time job?
Yeah, full-time job.
Between 30 and 35 hours a week.
Right. If we just move on to a story that you've come off your Facebook here. I don't know one woman on the island who hasn't got a dreadful story where they were either forced to do something or feared for their safety. I personally slapped predators off of women.
Yes.
Is that so? All women you know have had a situation where they felt threatened?
Yes, and women I don't even know have been quite publicly happy to speak to me about it, because there's been a lot of movements on the Isle of Man where victims are not looked after, are not protected. And, you know, it is a generational thing that's being passed on, and you want to call it toxic masculinity.
So it's always happened. It's not just with this generation.
No, and I think, to be honest, this generation is probably better than the last one. I think we are improving in that way.
But you're still saying that you know, every woman you know has had an experience of this sort, an unpleasant experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what do we do about it?
Educate people, for one.
What sort of education? If people are going to do this, presumably it's going to take a fairly powerful piece of education right from the word go.
There could be 101 things, from not putting a Barbie in a provocative dress, all the way to making men realise, not men, boys, whatever, realise that women are not there to be taken advantage of. And no means no. You know, it shouldn't be such a hard thing. But as well as that, there should be punishment for it when it happens, you know. There should be suitable punishment when things are proven to be at fault, or people are proven to be at fault in this way. You know, there's always been, look at Trump with his locker room chat. You know, it's always just been battered off like it's not important.
Well, can I move on to something you say is the best tool we've ever had for sharing ideas and worries? That's social media. Are there not some things that you hear and see on social media that can prompt bad behaviour in people?
Yeah, absolutely there is. But, every tool can be used badly.
So is there enough control on social media?
More than enough. In fact,
but people can say what they like anonymously about people, and basically nothing can be done to stop them.
Yeah.
Is that fair on the people who are being criticised?
Well, no one has to be involved in social media.
Yeah, but you can be the target of social media without being involved. You can actually sit to one side and have this coming at you without actually having anything to do with social media.
I suppose an example of that is Howard Quayle, because he has very little to do with, say, Facebook, but obviously gets a world of hate put towards him, sometimes unfairly.
Is that fair? Not fair, you say.
Sometimes unfairly.
Sometimes you think it's fair criticism.
Yeah, of course it is. I think, by and large, the whole point of social media is to give people a voice, to be able to share information. You don't have to agree with everything you see on social media.
But it can be people. If you read this stuff, sometimes you can think you can really knock you back. You think, goodness me, that's a terrible thing to say about me, and you get really depressed and offended by it.
Not really. Me personally, I don't. I think.
But people do.
Yeah, people get offended by what they get offended by. I look at social media as an outlet and a reflection of what society feels.
But is it controlled enough? That's the point I'm trying to make.
Sorry, yes, it is controlled.
It is controlled enough.
Yes, it is.
So you're happy with the way it's operating at the moment?
Yeah. I'd actually rather it was less censored than it is.
Yeah, less what?
Censored than it is. So
you think it's too censored?
Yeah.
So people... how is it censored in a way? Because people seem to be able to say what they like.
Seem to be able to. I've had to set up a new Facebook account because I keep going into jail on it. I keep getting my Facebook banned for disagreeing with people. I can call out a racist online and then have my account frozen. That's censorship.
And you're against that? You think that shouldn't happen?
Not in free media, no. Like, I get it in newspapers, I get it on the radio, but for social media, which is a wall for everyone...
Well, we'll try and steer clear of being offensive in this interview if we can.
Yeah.
You, although you're standing as an independent.
Yes.
Although you do quote the Labour Party as having quite a few ideas that you appreciate. How close are you to the Labour Party?
Politically or in general?
Politically, generally, your feelings, your empathies.
Oh, I was a car carrier member of the Labour Party in the UK until recently. I believe in... I believe in a lot of the qualities that Labour have. I just think on the Isle of Man personally, I will be a much more useful tool as an independent. And I think my first and foremost responsibility is to the people that I represent and not to toe a party line.
You do suggest to voters that to vote for the best or at least against the worst so far. If I get in, I won't be against 23 Conservatives. The Isle of Man politics is generally Conservative, though, isn't it?
The people who get voted in are.
So it is Conservatives. Generally, the politicians who get voted in are Conservative.
Yeah, but the electorate, if they actually voted on, I ran an experiment on this yesterday on one of the Isle of Man News and Politics pages, and I put like a political compass diagram where you answer a little question and it tells you where you are, kind of thing. And the vast majority of the island that answered it were left-leaning.
So you think the Isle of Man has left-leaning socialist, can I say, undertones, but basically it's kept to themselves. It's not apparent. The island is taken as a fairly right-wing conservative place.
Yes, I think the majority of the people who, a lot of the people online who cause offence and everything else, these people have apathy. They don't believe that their government works for them. They don't believe it's their government. They believe it's the government.
Can you just at one point, because we're coming nearly to the end of this 20 minutes, which has gone very quickly. You say that COVID is going to give problems for canvassing, going round on people's doors, because some people might say, I don't want someone just appearing at my door. So how do you get round that?
Currently, I'm just waiting for this vaccine to roll out a little bit more. Knock on a door, take 2 steps backwards and say, hiya.
But the election is coming ever closer, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and some people still haven't even declared.
So do you think that will be a disadvantage to you if you do stay away from it for a while until the vaccine is rolled out? And then...
Not really. I've made an effort since January. I've made quite an effort. I've been on the phone for like 2 to 3 hours a day. I'm emailing people constantly. I'm messaging people constantly. I've cut my work hours down to like 30% so I can take it on. So I am speaking to people. I'm doing Zoom conferences, which I offer out to anyone who wants to get in contact who doesn't want me. I've put my mobile number out there so people can call me and like converse back and forth. I'm hoping to do like a surgery style event, so I stand up and people can stand in an open area and talk to me as well. But as well as that,
When will that process start?
It's going to start in June, and then I'll be knocking on doors, taking a step back from the door, making sure that when they open, I'll say, "Hiya, I'm here to campaign. Don't know if you want me at your door," and then we'll take it from there, kind of thing. So.
Keiran Hannifin, standing in the middle constituency in the September general election. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.